Vacancy Legal Recruitment, a refreshingly unique and personal talent agency developed specifically for legal. Dedicated to the sector and with extensive experience working across legal services and legal technology, we bridge the gap between your requirements and top-tier legal talent. Get in touch today and say hello at vacancy.co.uk.
You're listening to the Today's Wills and Probate podcast, one of the leading sources of information for the wills and probate sector. Don't forget to subscribe and sign up to our free newsletter at todayswillsandprobate.co.uk and follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter.
Hello, welcome along to the latest Today's Wills and Probate podcast. Today we have Sam Grice. Sam is founder of Octopus Legacy, formerly Guardian Angel, one of the fastest, if not the fastest growing organization in this space. You make that claim, Sam, so I'll let you say it. Great to have you on the podcast. Obviously, the topic of discussion today is the business, is where it came from. I know it's a hugely personal journey for you, where it's going and your thoughts on what's happening in and around the sector. But lovely to have you on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, David.
What I do with these discussions in the first instance is try and get you to tell us a bit about who you are, what you do. So perhaps, Sam, you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about yourself.
My name's Sam. I'm from New Zealand originally. I am an entrepreneur, so this is my second time I've founded a company. The journey I'm on this time with Octopus Legacy started around 2017. So I was in financial services, working as an analyst, and unfortunately lost my mother in a car accident. So it was a very sudden death. Went out for a morning walk and never came home, which is one of those things you wish never happens to you, but unfortunately does. And I was 27 at the time and went through, I guess, that first few weeks that a lot of people listening might have gone through of losing someone, especially in a sudden death, which is you go into shock and very overwhelming. And because at that stage my dad was very overwhelmed as well, I took a lot of charge of what the family needed to do in that first few weeks. And it was just completely overwhelming, both emotionally, but practically, legally, financially. I just, kind of came out of that with my entrepreneurial drive and saying, what I'd just gone through, I'd really love to create a company that could help the population go through what is the toughest thing anyone's ever going to go through. In my opinion, it's one of the hardest things we have to deal with. And that was where the foundation of the company came, which was called Guardian Angel, which was originally on the premise of that guiding light through those first few weeks, and we've evolved a lot as a company since then. But I often talk about the story, and it was probably 3 days after I lost my mum when I actually seeded the idea of doing something which I think was my brain's way of dealing with the grief and the loss, and making something positive out of it. And we've done a lot and helped a lot of people since then. But it's been a really interesting journey.
You hear that story time and time again from entrepreneurs, that there's a life event, or they see or hear something and it flicks a switch in their head, doesn't it? What were you doing previously that you brought into this business that helped you to really get it going?
Yeah, so I think entrepreneurs have to find what they call product market fit. So it's finding problems and solutions. And often what you're trying to do is match the products that people, rather than matching products, you match consumers with problems. And so in my previous startup, we were focusing on consumer goods. So very, very different to the legal space. And it was matching, there was a diet at the time called paleo. It was incredibly difficult to find paleo products in the supermarkets, and so we created a suite of products to help, like from cereal to snacks for people that were on the paleo diet. And I think it kind of opened my mind up for how you can launch something from a brand perspective, but also solving a consumer's problem. And if you can do that, you find that product market fit, and you're able to build a company around it. And so that gave me kind of exposure to how to build something. And my financial services background, so I've had quite a wild career if you look from my CV, but my financial services background also gave me the ability to think about industries holistically. And if you're going to build something that's really large and a household name, there's certain ways you go about that. And I learned a lot about that by analyzing some of the biggest companies in the world as an equity analyst, I was able to kind of look at this space holistically with fresh eyes and say, well, what does a household name and getting ready for death look like, and kind of piecing together quite a complex business plan around that. So yeah, it was a combination of I could hack together CV that's given me the skills I hope to disrupt an industry.
Interesting that you describe it as disrupting. Your description of the journey that you were on after the death of your mother is this hugely emotional time. How can a company help with that? What was the thinking behind how Guardian Angel was going to support people?
Yeah, I think focus on the human. You'll find a lot of products, a will or life insurance, and it's very fragmented. So I think the space is fragmented for two reasons. One, there's a lot of smaller providers offering the services, so it's very fragmented from the providers that offer the space, but also from a product perspective. So if you think about a consumer and wanting to get ready for death, so they're putting an estate plan in place, it's quite hard for them to do that with a single provider. So they have to start to shop around within industries and between industries, and it just becomes fragmented and chaotic for them to navigate. But if you then flip that into bereavement, so they've just lost someone, now you throw in all that emotional stress, and it just becomes overwhelming because you don't know what to do. There's no guidance, there's no single point to go for. And so I think my experience of seeing that, because mum died unprepared, she was only 60, she wasn't expecting to die, everything in lack of preparation was also quite heightened. So I saw, I guess, everything in the boiler room at that time, and it gave me exposure to, well, if I can go back and solve the problem of 27-year-old Sam and be that brand that he can come to and get all the help and support he needs, then that's going to help millions of consumers. And that's how I've always approached it, which is thinking about it from a human's perspective rather than, we're a will writer trying to sell insurance or things like that. It's really focusing on what the human who wants. Another good example is we've just launched a death concierge service, and why we've done that is rather than telling people what we can help them with, we want them to ask us what we can help them with, and kind of flip it completely on its head, because you're assuming that they need, these 5 things post-death. Well, every death is different, as everyone knows, and they might be going through emotional stress, or they might be wanting just find someone to walk, a dog walking company. And that's why I think the concierge is quite powerful, because we can find out really what consumers are wanting. That's the type of business we're trying to build, which I think is very, very different in our space.
I'd really like to drill into that, because you got on the one hand the product that you're talking about, so whether it's a will or an LPA or a trust or whatever it might be, accepting that some of that you may choose to outsource as an organization depending on your level of regulation. But what you're talking about here is a service with the concierge service that really tries to drill into people's well-being almost post-death. That feels really, really challenging, Sam.
But big problems are challenging, and I think people using our services, the concierge in particular, and the way, to be clear, the way we've approached estate planning is very similar. So we're trying to offer holistic views on what people are wanting to do when they come through. So when someone's writing a will, as an example, we're encouraging them to do things like leave voice notes or memories and engage with the idea of legacy and what they want to leave behind, not just the formal document. And that's been sparked to us from customers. That's not our opinion on what they should be doing. We're getting asked that. I think we're doing similar with the post-death. And if you think about it from that perspective, they're coming to us with a series of products and we're trying to find solutions. And as a technology company, there'll be a combination, to your point, on some of those services we'll be able to build ourselves in-house. Some of those will find trusted partners. And yes, it's a big problem, but no one's really tackling that head on in the industry. And I think that's the opportunity in solving this is letting them come to us with what they need. And our clients so far on the platform have really been more impressed by the fact that it's just a number they can call to ask for help because there's not one around, versus a specific practical thing we've helped them with, which obviously we do help them with as well.
So spin forward, Guardian Angels launched, it's working, it's going, then an opportunity comes up to be part of the Octopus group. I guess maybe to listeners more famous for energy than they are for death. Tell us about how that all came about and why Octopus is a good home for you.
Yeah, sure. So it came about, I think, like all entrepreneurs, it's a lot of this is the right time at the right place, and this was definitely one of those stories, which I think is quite a lovely story actually. But we were raising investment. We were a technology company, so a lot of raising investment is quite a common thing you go through. We were talking to Octopus, so yes, they energy, but their tentacles spread far and wide. They're also one of the largest venture capital firms in the country. So we were talking to them about general investment, and one of the founders of Octopus, Simon, got involved in that process, which was quite not usual, and he interviewed me. So we had a chat, about an hour-long meeting, and for that whole meeting, it was very similar to this podcast. He was asking me about the customer, the human. What does the human need? Not why I care about wills and this. What are they wanting? And for the whole hour, that's what he was drilling into, both pre-death and post-death. And after that meeting, he called me up and asked me if I'd be interested in an acquisition to join the group. And the reason he had that conversation was because he'd just lost his father. I think it was 2 days before the funeral.
Oh, wow.
And he'd just gone through. So everything I was explaining, to your point on why we need a concierge service, is exactly what he'd been going through. And I think he linked, well, exactly, there's nothing out there. His family couldn't find it. And that was where the opportunity came from. I guess to your point on, well, why Octopus? I mean, Energy now is the largest energy provider in the country, and they've done that through lots of things, but one big focus has been customer service and just being known for being a utility provider that will answer the phone when you call them. They will solve your problem if they can, and if not, they will try to find another person who can. And they're very entrepreneurial and very focused on the customer. I wouldn't have found a right relationship with an organization that was very much focused on profits and products. It was very much around, how do we solve this space and how do we go at it with fresh eyes, and you need the right partner. And Simon, I'd say it wasn't too hard for him to convince me to join the group. We haven't looked back since. It's been an amazing journey, including a rebrand to take on their brand, which comes with a huge responsibility for customer service. And now we're building a big brand in our space as well.
I don't think legal services has ever been particularly renowned for customer service. And I say that very carefully because our listeners are all legal service providers. I got two questions really, Sam. The first is, what are we getting right and wrong with the experience around death as a sector? i.e., what do you see as the opportunity to put right? And I'll ask you my second question in a minute.
What the industry is doing right is they're offering a professional service to people at time and need, and that's very, very important. Often what you'll find is people are getting these plans, getting their estate plan in place due to some sort of life event they've gone through, whether they've gone through a divorce. And I think there is professional services there to help them through that. And I think they do a job. I think to your point on why they're not renowned for customer service, it's very similar to utilities were not known for customer service. I think if you look at, I think utilities, financial services was number one, utilities was number two, and I'm not sure where legal services sit, but utilities was definitely above that for not being known for customer service, and energy was able to approach that, and a big part of that is technology. Legal services and professional services often require a lot of work behind the scenes, back office work that can't be done quickly, and so what you need to enable is technology to allow you to have more time with that customer. And that's what we're trying to do. So what we're trying to do is eliminate some of the repetitive tasks in the back office so that we can free up our team to speak to the consumer more. And I think really that's what I think the industry is missing is being known for, I'm going to call and they're going to answer within a few rings and help me out. And potentially some providers do that really, really well and some do not. And I think as a whole, the industry needs to really go back to thinking about what we're doing. And if you think about probate, when I lost mum, for that first week, I could hardly eat. I lost about 5 kgs. And so I think maybe there's this connection between what are you actually dealing with? You're dealing with someone who has probably gone through one of the most traumatic moments of their life. And yes, they need to go through probate potentially, and they might have an interest in other legal services. But really, what's the human going through? And no one's really asking that. And I think that's what we personally think is missing, and something that we really want to bring to market as a brand that is known for having those conversations with customers when they need us.
And the second question, and you've kind of touched on it there, Sam, is that balance between technology and the customer experience and being able to provide that hands-on service. And I think that's a clash that a lot of organizations have really struggled to get the right balance with. What I gather you're saying is that you use the technology to do all the stuff behind the scenes to enable those front of house people to do their jobs more effectively.
Yeah, 100%. I'm a tech enthusiast, so I'll talk. I can talk about that for as long as you want. But I mean, technology is an enabler, and ultimately, it's how companies and organizations use that technology is quite important. So, for example, we've got the capability to build, say, an AI chatbot that eliminates communication with clients. We're definitely not doing that. However, some companies might do that. And so it depends what you're using the technology for, I think is really, really important. And so what we're using technology for is, to enable our team to have more time on phones with clients and have those conversations that maybe in the past they haven't had the time to do because they need to get on to the next client or call someone up because there's something else they need to. And we think technology is the enabler there. And that is something that all of the Octopus companies have in common is they're technology companies, but they're not removing the humans from the process, and that's very, very important.
So if you sort of lead then into, well, what does digitizing this sector look like? Because there's a huge amount to talk about that, and we're anticipating to a certain extent the law commissions come out and talk about digitalizing will writing in some way, but that's got to be tempered with risk. It's got to be tempered with this customer service element that you're talking about. In your view, what does that look like over the course of the next couple of years?
I think it's a really good question, and I think every industry goes through these transformations at one point of the time. And if you look at digital banking as a good example, so that now has just become normal. I think Monzo, when I started using Monzo, was new, and people didn't know why I had a pink card. Now it's very common; you see them everywhere. And I think legal services will have to go through that. And our view is that we encourage digitization. It democratizes industries in a good way. But you're absolutely right. With professional services, you've got to make sure that you're still delivering good products to customers. I mean, that's really why we're all here. And so it will be a balance of how the industry goes through that. And our view on that is always that we still have humans in the process. So even our online wills, for example, go through legal checks. That's important. We're not just doing a user enters information and then will comes out the other end. That's not what we're trying to build. However, the industry might need to adapt to companies that are wanting to do it that way and make sure that if companies are wanting to do a fully digital flow, the consumer is still protected in the right way. And so every industry goes through this. And I think with AI, I've never seen the transformation happen this quickly. And so what you're getting now is fully autonomous AI agents that can do tasks like back office tasks, like you mentioned, nearly better than humans now. And so it's like, we will have to adapt with this technology. You can't put your head in the sand around AI for too long. It's evolving too quickly.
As far as I can tell, there is an appetite, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Sam, for you to build a national identity, a national brand with Octopus Legacy, and clearly you've got the backing of Octopus behind you to achieve that. We've seen this attempted before in legal services. It's an incredibly fragmented market. What are you doing that makes you believe that you're able to achieve that?
We definitely have appetite to become one of the biggest providers in this space. I think there's large providers, but I'd say household name yet it's hard to know, because you talk to even regionally in the country. Yes, I think sometimes you can get into the habit of assuming market leadership because you're surrounded by people that know who you are. But if you actually step out into the public and say you need to go do your estate plan, who would you go talk to? And not many names pop up. So we've definitely got appetite for that. I think what we're working with is a combination of consolidating the products together. I think there's a lot of procrastination in preparation, so getting estate plans in place. And I think that comes down to, as I said earlier, the fragmentation of the products as well. It's not simple. So if you've got a difficult task, humans obviously not going to want to run it that fast. If filing your taxes is a similar thing which you have to do, so you do go through it. It's one of those things you need to do. But I think consolidating the products will give us the ability to allow us to help a customer with what they want, which is getting preparations for death, and then post death we can help their family with all of those services in one place as well. And then acquisition is part of that. So we're looking for other companies in the space, energy became a household name through acquisitions, and I think that'll be a big part of how Octopus generally enters the space. But acquisitions can be quite difficult without a strong technical core in a company, because if you're acquiring 4 different companies with 4 different CRMs and case management softwares, it actually becomes very, very difficult to consolidate businesses. But Octopus Legacy has built software that allows us to do that, and so it'll be a combination of both product consolidation and, we believe, market consolidation through acquisition and organic growth, just as our name gets more known, for sure. I think we're lucky that I think 1 in 3 households have one of our products, and I would say most people in the country will know the Octopus brand, which will help.
At the risk of getting into a lengthy debate, and we are heading towards the end of the podcast, or time for the discussion, Octopus Legacy is an unregulated business. What is your view of the future of regulation? We had the CMA guidance last year. There doesn't seem to be a lot of appetite centrally to really sort of drive this regulation agenda. But for businesses like yourselves that are equity backed as effectively, is that important?
Yes, I think regulation is important in all industries. The conversation of regulation doesn't need to be the focus. It should always be on consumer outcomes, for sure. And so we should be building an industry where the consumer is getting a great service. For example, we welcome regulation when it comes to transparency, protecting consumers. But I think companies and industry should go over and above regulation. So you should be offering, taking the extra mile when it comes to doing consumer outcomes, and that's always what we focus on: is this the right decision for the customer? And if that's the right answer, that's the path we tend to go.
You talked in the start of the discussion about changing this industry, disrupting this sector, and I think that there absolutely is an opportunity to do that, and you're seeing that across legal services. Listeners to the podcast will be aware that today's media publishes today's conveyancer, today's wills and probate, and today's family lawyer. Each of those sectors are all going through digitization agendas, they're going through regulatory agendas, and they're making changes to the way that legal services are being delivered. So it doesn't surprise me that you're doing what you're doing, and I'm intrigued to see what the speed of change will be over the course of the next few years. It's been great to have you on the podcast, Sam, and we'll no doubt catch up at some point soon for an update as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, David. It's been a great conversation.
The Today's Wills and Probate podcast is available on your preferred podcast provider. It's also available on today's willsandprobate.co.uk. My thanks to Sam. Thank you as ever for listening, and we'll see you again soon.
You're listening to the Today's Wills and Probate podcast, one of the leading sources of information for the wills and probate sector. Don't forget to subscribe and sign up to our free newsletter at todayswillsandprobate.co.uk and follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter.